Welcome to Behind the Warrior, a podcast presented by the EOD Warrior Foundation. This series will focus on resources, interviews, and topics impacting EOD warriors, their families, and the military community at large.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Behind the Warrior. I'm your host, Maria Shabla, and today we're extremely excited to be speaking with active duty Army Lieutenant General Heidi Hoyle. Welcome to the podcast, Heidi.
Thanks, Maria. I really appreciate your time and the opportunity to tell my story and be together with the EOD team today.
Awesome. Well, we're so excited to be here with you, Heidi. So I always like to start from the beginning. Can you tell us about yourself? Where did you grow up and what was your childhood like?
I had an extremely different childhood from many people. So I grew up in Michigan, mid-Michigan, which is part of the Lower Peninsula. So you don't have to ask that piece right off the top. But my parents were, my father was an engineer, my mother was a registered nurse. And so that sounds really luxurious. And you think, okay, you're going to have this glamorous childhood where on your 16th birthday you get a car. But mom and dad decided to go ahead and adopt many children. So in the family, there were, I call it 16. My father calls the number only like 10, and it just depends on how you count the numbers. So 12 adopted, 2 natural, and then 2 who were sponsored from Vietnam. And then, of course, I also had 2 siblings that I consider my siblings, who were really my nieces. And so just a large family. So there was always someone to play with. There was always, someone to bicker with. There was always somebody to, just have a different time in the house. So our house had 10 bedrooms, only 2.5 bathrooms. And so you can imagine that number of people in the house. It's like crazy. Once we got to being teenagers, it was, kind of even more crazy. But so I had a very different childhood. As we kind of just went through day-to-day operations, and I call it operations seriously. I mean, it makes the Army feel like a normal place. When you're doing a load of white towels and a load of dark towels and a load of white socks and a load of dark socks. It became just an interesting childhood to grow up in, and everything was well cared for. My parents were very natural. We had a garden. Homemade bread. We would go to church and do specific things that just normal families would do in mid-Michigan.
Wow. I mean, I can't even imagine that many children in a household. That's incredible. So maybe that got you set up to be able to coordinate and juggle just tons of things on a daily basis. So that's really neat. So Heidi, what inspired you to apply to the United States Military Academy and to serve in the military?
Absolutely. So as we were raised as kids, we were very competitive with each other and then very competitive in different sports. So I was a swimmer. Before I was a swimmer, I was a gymnast, but in high school, I was a swimmer. And so as I was doing swimming, I received a letter from the United States Military Academy, and it asked me to come out for a visit. It asked me to go ahead and, consider becoming an officer in the United States Army, and then obviously a commission along with that. And so I wanted absolutely nothing to do with the Army. I am not a morning person. I should have been, a bartender instead of an Army officer. It's been an interesting part of my career, the number of times that I have to hit the snooze on my alarm to just get up. But I've made it along the way, and it's been okay. And so, I had absolutely no consideration. And my coach, she just said, Heidi, just go ahead and fill out the application. You can turn it down. Don't worry about it. Go take your ACT, go do the physical, go do the PT test. And as kind of the requirements were coming through and building the packet that was required, the congressional nomination and so on, all of a sudden I was selected. And then I thought, oh crap, nobody gets selected and doesn't go. And so there became that kind of internal pressure, and then I was like, well, okay, maybe I could get there and go ahead and just leave. right? And then you just don't do that either. And so day by day, you evaluate it, and I learned what a great opportunity it was. Opportunity, first of all, to kind of work on the swimming piece, which was to swim at a Division I school. The next piece was obviously the education. It was a top-notch education without college bills. Free gym membership, free medical care, a little bit of stipends. But in the end, it was a pathway to a military career. Even upon graduation, I hadn't really considered that I would have a career in the Army. My commitment was 5 years of active duty and 3 years of reserve component. And I've really screwed that up because here I am 30 years later and still serving. So, it's obviously been something that I've learned to love. It's been something that, the snooze on the alarm clock hasn't gotten away from me. And it's something that I feel a piece of. It's the connection to the Army has been just incredible.
Wow. So what did your parents think about you joining the military? Is there anybody else in your family who is military?
So I think Mom was a little bit less inclined to embrace it.
Mm-hmm.
My father was more inclined. So my father had grown up, in Vietnam was, the time when he was a young man.
Mm-hmm.
And so as he was finishing college and the draft was going on, his draft number came up for Vietnam. And as his number came up and he went off to the MEP station, and he arrived at the MEP station, he was sitting there, and some young lieutenant saw in his paperwork that he had a degree in engineering. And so this young lieutenant looked my father in the eye and he said, "Come follow me." He's like, "You're not going to Vietnam to get killed." And my father to this day kind of credits him with saving his life, but he took him and got him stationed within the research and development for munitions. And so he did ballistics testing at one of our ammunition plants. And I mean, just the irony of it, and not really realizing that as I was growing up, and not even until a couple of years after I graduated from West Point, seeing his uniform in the basement with, the ordnance symbols on it. It was just, kind of coming first circle in understanding kind of how his military career went. It was short, right? But he went and did ballistics testing in Pennsylvania. And so, he knew that there was great leaders in the Army and that leadership would take care of you. And so he was less concerned with it because of his experience. And then Mom was just being a mom. Mom's always right.
Wow, that is an incredible story. Wow, it's like a miracle. So Heidi, how did you get into EOD? How did you choose the career field?
Yeah, so I didn't realize what EOD was until just probably a few months before graduation. And so as we were selecting our branches, I originally thought I was going to go into field artillery because it was the time when, first Gulf War happened and the United States was using Patriot missiles to shoot down Scuds. And so that was very exciting to watch and see young leaders doing, and even young female officers, right? So many female officers couldn't be in the combat arms branches, but watching them succeed in shooting down Scud missiles was very exciting. Ultimately, though, I did decide to branch into the Ordnance Corps, and it was a couple months later that I learned about EOD, and then I thought, this is absolutely what I want to do. And I don't know if it's just the way that my brain thinks and problem solving, or if it was, watching MacGyver as a kid. It was just the kind of logical sequences of things, right? If you can understand how something functions, you don't have to be able to see it from the inside out. You can see it from the outside in. And going to school it was fascinating, right? Looking at the typings on the munitions, right? If it's Cyrillics, and getting your dimensions and the color codes and everything, that you could figure out specifically what that munition item was as long as it was in our publications. And so that was just an incredible challenge to be able to know and understand. And of course, just the varied mission sets, right? Being out with Secret Service one day, doing range clearances the next, heading to a combat training center or a deployment another day. Working through, just your training as, the training has developed from our normal sets, kits, and outfits to moving up to the robotics that came as a result of multiple years of conflict in CENTCOM, and even to new mission sets as unexploded ordnance is being delivered by unmanned systems. It's just been fascinating to kind of see the progression, and so I wanted to be a part of that. I saw that pretty early on, and it was always a challenge. And then, of course, the soldier, right? The soldier is a different breed in EOD. We all have TS clearances, so we generally don't get in trouble. We all, physically fit, right? It's individuals who are driven to solving problems each and every day, and so that was something that I really looked forward to.
Mm-hmm. Heidi, can you share with us some of your career highlights over the years?
Absolutely. My favorite assignment was company command. I think it's just, the ability to get down there, place your hands on, and work with your soldiers. I have recollections of some of my first incidents and not even being qualified as a team leader in the unit yet.
Wow.
Some of my NCOs who were doing my check ride, basically validating me as a team leader before I could go out and perform as a team leader. And so thinking about those NCOs who kind of took me under their arm and brought me through a leader validation process, now it's formalized as a team leader certification process in the Army, but then it was a lot less formalized. And so I think that's just kind of that tip of the spear, right? As you think about EOD school and how it's all services together, officer and enlisted together, it makes it a very interesting dynamic and one that's powerful and something that you can't experience in any of our other services or branches that we have, I believe. And so company command was one of my most exciting times. One of my most humbling would have obviously been selected to become a general officer. Of course, that means your time as the officer who could do EOD assignments has come to an end, right? We don't have EOD assignments specifically for general officers because you're supposed to be a generalist. You're supposed to be able to do multiple things. And so that was a little bit sad, but also very humbling that the Army would select me to do something like this, especially since I hadn't done your traditional logistics assignments. That was where I was selected to be a general officer in. So those are, I think, probably two of the most rewarding. Obviously, each deployment has different touch points as you go out and serve with other countries, as you go out and take actions to make the world a safer place. I remember things like in Afghanistan where we had lent some robots to the French soldiers because the robots had been impacted by IEDs. And so as they were returning one of our robots, it was kind of a fun way of doing it, but they brought it to the door of our EOD shop, drove it up, knocked on the door, and then kind of walked away. And there was, I don't think it was an Andros, I think it was a PackBot, but the PackBot was holding a bottle of champagne, right? And so it's like, of course, we're not allowed to have alcohol in theater, but here's our partners that did, right? And so there's each and every one of those little special moments where it's something different. It's an exchange with an individual that just makes it real, right? Here were some of their comrades who were injured in an IED incident, the loss of equipment, the loss of their robots, the interchangeability with U.S. systems, and being able to take advantage of utilizing our equipment and then bringing it back in a very special way. And so, while sometimes it's not always the big things, it's the little moments.
Yeah. Oh, that's a great story. I love it. So Heidi, here at the foundation, we are really focused on mental health. Can you tell us some struggles you may have had throughout your career, and how do you take care of your mental health?
Absolutely. I look back on my time as the group commander, and that's where we were back to back, multiple deployments, and the soldiers going back overseas again and again. Team leaders, because the Army doubled in size while we were in Iraq and Afghanistan. So team leaders being pushed through the system probably quicker than they wanted to be and quicker than the leadership maybe wanted them to be, but we needed team leaders on the battlefield. And so it was a really hard time for EOD, especially on the Army side. And so as we kind of look at what was happening over there, obviously there was the mental challenges, the mental toll that it was taken on not only soldiers, but also their families. And when those tolls come on the families, right, there's that pressure and interchange between both, right? We become less of a support system on each other and maybe more, friction with each other than we would have maybe appreciated before. And so I reached out to the foundation at the time, and it was before we had in the EOD Warrior Foundation this component of mental health. And I said, I've got suicides happening in the EOD group. I don't know what you can do for me, but I need help. And initially, there was not pushback or resistance, right? It was the desire, the strong desire from the foundation to help us, but not knowing how and what potentially legal repercussions could be about it, what kind of considerations. And so it took a few weeks, and they reached back to me, and I tell you, it was just a complete change from the initial phone call, and the realization that, yes, our EOD warriors needed help. And trying to just figure out how to do it. And that's when we had the different pillars in the EOD Foundation. And so watching that kind of come from an initial request into the build out of where we are today, things like Boulder Creek, the Facebook pages, right? After the long walk, just watching the developmental change in EOD has been just exceptional, from, again, those organizations like you who support us, all the way into how we support each other. It's interesting how, individuals will talk about their challenges on the web pages now, sometimes anonymously, and that's perfectly fine, right? To just say, hey, here's what I'm going through, here's my struggle, here's what I'm reaching out to do, to seeing individuals volunteering for our hotline, to tell each other when we have destructive behaviors, right? Like alcohol is not the answer. It's not the best way to solve these problems. I think there's some stuff about financial considerations over this last week. And so just techs reaching out and helping each other, and it's multi-service. It's not just Army or Navy or Air Force. It's all of the services helping each other. And so I think that there's that peer network, but then being tough on each other, right? And not tough like beating each other up, but being tough on each other and saying this is destructive or this is a healthy way to do something. And so we all have a different way of working through problems, and mine is not your traditional stigma of how females solve problems, and that doesn't make me any different, right? There's males who solve problems, there's females who solve problems in similar ways and then also in differing ways, but I would prefer to just go swim a mile, right? Beat up the water. I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to pontificate. I don't want to have all of this emotional crying and outbursts. And sometimes that does happen, right? But it's about just like a physical activity for me, right? Going out and cutting down a tree or taking a long run. And so everyone's got a different outlet. And so for some, it's talking with friends. For some, it's visiting with family. For others, it's a physical activity. For some, it's a spiritual need. And so just knowing what your way to decompress is, knowing what your way to solve problems are amongst maybe an internal struggle that you're having is very helpful. And so mine is a physical outlet and not kind of doing it from an emotional standpoint.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. That's awesome. I love how you mentioned the family too, Heidi, because it's so important. And here at the foundation, we believe that EOD is a family, one big family. And what does that mean to you? EOD as family?
Well, it means a lot. I think if you come from shared understanding, from shared situations, from shared circumstances, that then you have this relationship to other people. There's a book, Sebastian Junger, and it's called Tribe. And there's a chapter in there, and it's been years since I've read it, but it talked about individuals who were essentially kidnapped, and when they were, the whole village that was taken over. And so when they were eventually freed from this group who had taken the village, that they didn't leave. And it was because, not like a Stockholm syndrome type of thing, but because they felt a sense of belonging to that individual group that overtook them. And so I think the shared understanding that we have is very, very powerful in creating that family relationship. It's not as if you have this officer hierarchy or this NCO hierarchy or this junior enlisted hierarchy. Right? We're expected to tell each other that you're not performing well. Go take a knee, right? I'm your P1, I'm your P2. You need to go get out of the bomb suit. You need to go drink water. I'm going to go either execute the task for you, or we're going to wait out the situation. And so I think that in and of itself is, that shared kind of lateral understanding is very, very helpful in creating that dynamic of family. Mm-hmm. You can say that other branches maybe have it, like aviators and different things, but I think that it's potentially quite different just because you do have that, but I think there's that officer kind of specificity, and there's that enlisted specificity, right? We each had different tasks in some of the other branches, whereas in EOD, we're expected to do the same task amongst each other.
Yeah, that's right. So I have to ask, what has it been like to be working 30 years in a male-dominated career field, and how have you seen things change over the years?
I would say it's only male-dominated if you let it be. But that's not true. Numbers, show otherwise, right? It is a profession where there are more men than women. Mm-hmm. And then, of course, obviously, EOD is probably even a tighter number than that. So amongst the Army, less than 20% women. I think we're at 17 or 18% right now, and probably for EOD, even less. But I see this powerful group of young women right now who are coming into the EOD ranks, and I look at them, and they are physically fit, they are mentally acute, they are just, it's in that case not a male or a female thing, right? It's an EOD tech thing. And I think, again, that shared understanding and doing the same tasks as you walk out of there and come to a situation where individuals just have that mutual respect for each other. And so we don't have to look at male versus female. I was back in my company command and thinking about our CTC rotation, so a combat training center rotation that we were doing at the National Training Center. And the guys were just crazy. Just simple things is there was only 2 females in the unit, myself and our admin clerk at the time, and she didn't go to the training center just purely based upon some of the restrictions we had on individuals who are allowed to go based upon financial situations for the Army, not like personal financial situations. And so we had to optimize on training value, and the techs were prioritized in that situation. And so there I was, right, in this company of crazy young men, and they didn't make me feel any different any day, right? It wasn't about being a male or a female, and so it was great.
What advice would you give young women coming into EOD?
I would tell anyone coming into the military or anyone coming into EOD that, first of all, this is a profession. This is not a job. It's not a career. It's a profession. And if you look at it that way and you treat it that way, I think it's much more beneficial. Now, am I asking every 18-year-old kid on the street to come in and kind of swear an oath with the same kind of drive like a doctor who was doing the Hippocratic Oath? No, that's not going to happen. But I think as you mature and grow through the ranks, you'll see that will kind of come to fruition. And so as you're kind of working through this, right, physical fitness, you start the day every day at 6:30 usually, and you're doing PT. You're there with your team, and if you're running side by side with each other, it's a lot different than the one who's always having to be circled back for, or the one who's going to have to be assisted with maybe some of the day-to-day tasks of carrying sandbags for protective works or something in an EOD problem set. So physical fitness is key. Second is, again, that treatment of your job as a profession of arms. And so no one wants to be around a doctor who doesn't understand specifically what they're doing. And so why would anyone want to do the same amongst a military member who's not understanding what their career and profession are and how they support that? Knowing how you fit into the team, right? There's a time to lead and there's a time to follow. And it's not purely based upon rank, right? It's about when you need to know, and especially in our profession, that somebody's ready to do a specific task or tell you that you're not ready to do a specific task based upon your maybe energy, based upon your sleep, based upon you name it, right? Your personal situation. And so, again, being able to lead or to follow. And I think probably the last piece would be have fun, right? It seems like a little cliche maybe, but if you're not having fun in anything that you do, it's time to really look and just figure out how you can get onto a path where you enjoy life. We're on this earth for such a short period of time that you might as well have some fun with it. And there's no reason, in such a short opportunity for a military career, you can retire in 20 years. There's absolutely no reason to be miserable for 20. And so I would just say, go out, see your local area, go out and explore, go out and do the things that make you happy, both on duty and off duty. And so having fun would be the last piece.
Well, that is great advice. I love it. So Heidi, what are your thoughts on retention and recruitment in the career field?
Whew. Yeah, I've been through thick and I've been through thin, right? We've been through feast and we've been through famine, especially in the Army. I talked a little bit earlier about when we needed to grow the Army significantly and we didn't have enough staff sergeant ranks. And you can't grow a staff sergeant overnight. The team leader, the critical point of the individual who is performing EOD operations. And so I've also been on the other side as we came out of the wars and when we inactivated some of our units. And so having too many. And so as we look at both the feast and the famine, understanding that there's opportunities in both of those situations. So when we had too many, I saw many officers and many enlisted members transition into either another branch where they then actually contributed to the EOD community in a different way. And I've seen individuals who were enlisted soldiers become warrant officers, and we don't even have warrant officers in EOD, right? So an opportunity to become a technical expert in another branch. And so it's really kind of neat to see as the Army ebbs and flows, how we have to adapt and adjust. In war periods, we're gonna go larger in size and strength, and in the interwar years, we're gonna go smaller. And so as that happens, just taking advantage of what are the schooling things that we can do, what are the opportunities that you maybe want to find in a different career field, maybe even leaving the service for a temporary period of time, or where we have the reserve component. So our EOD is in the National Guard, so still continuing to serve, but in a different capacity. And so watching EOD grow and recede is very powerful to watch. But then the retention, right? The retention. When we retain soldiers because they love it, it is significantly rewarding as a leader to watch that happen. And so individuals stay in the Army, they re-enlist, whether there's bonuses or not bonuses, right? It's not the money that makes a soldier stay. Now that part's nice. When we get a bonus, on the enlisted side of the house, $100,000 career retention bonus, that's nice. But we're doing that bonus because our numbers are so low and we have to retain every single person, right? We're at this critical point, probably a point where there's a lot more stress. And so when there aren't the bonuses, usually we're pretty healthy, and that's when a unit is, in this non-back-to-back deployments and such. And so feast and famine are going to happen, and just take advantage of each of those specific times that they happen, and be aware of what they are, so you can be aware what the triggers and stressors are. But as we've gone through these feast and famines, it was so exciting to watch the soldiers recruit the next person to replace them. And so a couple of years ago, it's probably actually been about 10 years ago. It sounds like it was yesterday, but the Army, we put this brassard back on, and it was to be able to have an immediate recognition. Right? For us, it's the badge, but for the Army, it's this brassard, because some people don't understand what the badge is. And so the brassard was a recruiting tool. It was when we needed to recruit more individuals, and it was exciting to watch Army EOD techs down in the post exchange or at the gym, or you name it, right? At different locations, recruiting individuals to come in and replace them. And as I'm talking about recruiting, right, there's the on the street recruiting and hometowns and our traditional recruiters. But then within the EOD community, we were able to recruit up to a certain rank. At the time, it was up to the rank of a sergeant, so an E5. And watching individuals bring in someone who is already in uniform and saying, hey, I'm going to get you to transfer to this great job. Do you want to be a part of this team? An elite group, a tight-knit community, a team of professionals. And so watching that happen was extremely powerful because the individuals were talking about this with such pride. And so, I don't know, it made me really happy to watch the pride in the EOD technician. And I'm assuming all the other branches of service have, a similar experience in that. But watching them find the tech to follow behind them was pretty cool. And as they did that, we brought in some skills in the EOD that we didn't have. So what I mean by that is potentially someone was a combat medic was now going to become an EOD technician. Somebody who was an infantryman would be an EOD tech. Somebody who was an intelligence analyst would become an EOD tech. Somebody who was a supply technician, an EOD tech, right? And so we brought in all these skills to this very, very small formation that you don't have the ability to have those skills in there without those skills being brought in from another form or fashion, because we only have the unit with EOD techs in it.
Wow, that's awesome. And you're right. It's like a great way to have so much diversity within the career field. That's wonderful. Well, Heidi, we are very excited about our upcoming gala to celebrate 50 years of women in EOD, and are very excited to have you come to our gala. What does the event mean to you?
So it's so funny watching the Olympics right now, and they come up on there and they talk about Mary Lou Retton, and they say, "Do you remember when she won the gold medal 40 years ago?" And I said, "Actually, I do." Oh my goodness, I do remember that. And so it made me think about, this weekend coming up and having the 50-year celebration. I'm thinking, oh my goodness, I was alive then, I was born then. It's going to see Linda Cox and probably her thinking about it will be pretty cool. But we all have like memories of certain time, right? Many of us remember when 9/11 happened. Many of us remember Lady Diana getting killed in the tunnel. Many of us remember specific things that have happened, the Challenger disaster. And so it's good to have those memories of the bad things, but the memories of the good things are even better. And so thinking about those times when you saw a specific woman excel, break a glass barrier, and then there no longer had to be the first. That was, to me, kind of one of the most special things. As I became a group commander out of the 71st Ordnance Group at Fort Carson, I remember one of the reporters coming up to me and they're, "What do you think it's like to be a first female EOD group commander?" And I thought, I'm not. And I was excited to not be the first. And so having the first who've gone before us, who've done it successfully, were like, just, it's powerful. And I hadn't, in the beginning of my career, embraced that. I was, the first, I want to talk about this, right? But today, I look at my classmates or my teammates or my Army mates and their young daughters who are growing up and their young sons who are growing up and the role model that you can be for them. And it just became very apparent that it's not about what you're doing now to the people you serve with. It's about giving the inspiration to others and having them see a path where they can see themselves in it. And so it took me a long time to come to that realization and recollection. And I'll probably be a first now. But in the beginning, I did not embrace it, I'll tell you.
Well, that's wonderful. Well, we're so excited to see you here in Niceville this weekend. And I just want to thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to us. And we'll see you soon in Niceville.
All right. Thank you, Maria. I really appreciate your time. And I look forward to seeing you, all the ladies, and then even the guys down there.
Well, Heidi, we're going to end this interview, as is our tradition, to ask you a couple questions about some of your favorite things.
Okay.
So the first is, what is your favorite hobby?
Swimming.
Oh, there you go. Do you swim daily?
I don't right now, but when I do, I feel a lot better about myself. I told you that's how I relieve stress. I tell you, that's the way I work through problems.
Yeah.
And so you get those goggles back on and get in the pool.
Very cool. Okay, what is your favorite way to stay fit? But you might already know that. Swimming again. Okay. What is your favorite band or genre of music?
Swimming?
No. No. It can't be swimming again.
I enjoy music from all genres. Some of my favorites have been Green Day, Chris Stapleton, Elton John. It's all over the map. And
wow, so, that's a wide range.
Absolutely.
Okay, and lastly, what is your favorite meal or type of food?
I'm a big foodie. That's why I got to keep doing PT. My husband and I, we just love food. So my favorite, I don't even know that I have a favorite. I got a favorite in every category, right? So there's a favorite kind of, that would be pepperoni, mushroom, and black olive. Favorite fish would be stored fish. Favorite steak, mid-rare, and I know that's not the kind of steak, but if you overcook it, it doesn't matter what it is. So if you cook it properly, it'll taste good. But yeah, there's a favorite in everything. So I'll give you that for the answer there.
So your favorite food is food.
Food. I like that. Yes.
All right, Heidi. Well, again, thank you so much. And we're so excited for you and wish you the best in your career. And like I said, we'll be thrilled to see you at the gala celebrating 50 years of women in EOD.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to our Behind the Warrior podcast, brought to you by the EOD Warrior Foundation. The EOD Warrior Foundation is a 501c3 nonprofit organization serving the EOD community by providing financial assistance, scholarships, and providing hope and wellness resources for the active duty, reserve, National Guard, retired, and veteran EOD communities and their families. We also honor our fallen and wounded EOD technicians by maintaining the EOD Memorial and Remembrance Garden. We do all this through the generosity of individual and corporate donors and sponsors. If you would like to assist the foundation or support our Behind the Warrior podcast, click the link on our webpage at eodwarriorfoundation.org or contact us at info@eodwarriorfoundation.org. Thank you for listening, and don't forget to tell a friend. The various opinions, beliefs, and viewpoints expressed by guests, contributors, and participants of the Behind the Warrior podcast are their own and are intended for informational purposes only. They do not necessarily reflect the opinions, beliefs, viewpoints, or policies of the EOD Warrior Foundation or its employees and volunteers.